But whether we are or
Laughing at
not,
me,
you're going to
Molly.
do it, right?
I guess if you don't want me to, I don't have to, but it's helpful.
Well, let us know when we're there, okay?
Okay.
In the meantime, Andy, do you want to reintroduce Melissa to the group that's now here?
Yeah, sure. Well, I can introduce Melissa, and it looks like I believe Brian's on board here as well. So our city manager and new assistant city manager are with us today. And I don't know that you can see him yet. It looks like I can see.
Yes,
Brian,
we
are you
can.
with us?
I'm here.
All right, great. So Brian, Melissa, as I introduced to Melissa earlier, Bob Berkebile and Carol Adams are our co-chairs. Carol, how would you like to introduce the commission?
It's up to the commissioners. Does each one want to say a little something? Would you guys rather just reveal yourselves during the course of the meeting? That may be the best way for him to get a flavor of what we're like.
It makes
And
no
it's more
difference to me.
Okay. I'm invisible because I can never get my camera to work on my computer. So I'm just CA.
Carol, we could also say magical.
Well, whatever works. Do you want to go ahead and start the discussion on the fleet, Andy, and then we'll come back to the minutes?
Yeah, certainly. It sounds like a plan. Okay, so I had sent to the commission at the pretty much the end of last week a draft of an AR that we had started circulating among some of our stakeholders. And this is kind of the start of a conversation that I know we've had with the commission over the past several months about electrifying the fleet. And then the city manager, Brian, and had come forward with our fleet manager and was talking about, again, trying to promote electrifying our fleet as well. So we decided to kind of start circulating this administrative regulation, which is an internal document that we often use in city government to kind of set internal policies, directives for city staff, more or less. And I know the commission has seen varieties of these over the past several years. But this was kind of the start of a conversation to kind of help frame that, what that policy might look like. And so I had originally shared it with some stakeholders that were outside the commission. Over the past 2 weeks, they kind of provided some feedback and some input into this, and kind of help kind of package this such that I could share it with the commission for your particular input. So before we kind of look at this in any more detail, I did want to give Brian a chance to comment about this as well. Brian?
Sure. Thank you, Andy. And nice to meet some of you for the first time, some familiar faces here. Sustainability, I think, is one of my personal passions. And I think we've got some really interesting and exciting opportunities here as a city to do big things, not just for the city, but for the region and to lead in a lot of ways. Our city fleet is one big opportunity that we have here. We have hundreds of vehicles in the fleet, and one of the challenges that, of course, we all face is that there's not always a suitable zero emissions option available for some types of vehicles. But with recent announcements and launches of some pickup truck and SUV models in the electric car market, we think this is an opportunity for us to really take a very aggressive and bold approach to electrification and zero emissions for a municipal fleet. So on a very high level, I think the vision is to, at a certain point, just say starting today or starting some point in the future, every new vehicle must be zero emissions, likely electric, battery electric, where a feasible and reasonable option exists. So, for example, if there's no electric street sweeper, or the electric fire truck option is 4 or 5 times the cost, and it, like, for some reason just doesn't work it's not feasible for us to implement, then that is an exception. But if and where possible, move towards electrification immediately. Back in Jersey City, where Melissa and I are coming from, we had a very aggressive approach to this, which was over 5 years, we got to that point. And in the beginning, it was a certain percentage of new vehicles, but those percentages are always sort of hard to track and sort of just a lot of details that made it complicated, both for us internally and also messaging for the public. You know, were we really meeting our goals? Were we really doing all that we could? And I think that pushing us as far as we can through policy is probably, we have an opportunity to do that here. So that's sort of the vision. Just starting at a certain point, every new vehicle will be zero emissions, likely electric, unless there's some other option out there. I'm not sure what that would be. Bicycles, I guess, but yeah, that's the angle here. Curious what the group thinks. I know there's a policy, a draft AR that's been circulated. There are a lot of details in it and a lot of nuance in it, and it overlaps with some other existing policies I know as well, or we know. But I think for messaging purposes, it's much easier to fit it into like a tweet size, thing of this is a 1-sentence policy we got. But curious if anyone has any thoughts or comments on that.
And I also might throw out there, Dan Williams is with us, the fleet manager. So if any of you have questions about the fleet,
Yes,
and specifically, certainly throw those out there. I'm sure Dan can field those.
So Brian, this is
Wow.
Bob. For one, I really celebrate your leadership on this. And as we all know, it's not just a matter of reducing emissions and so on. Moving to electric is a really smart move financially. And as you know, everyone that's done it has saved enormous amount of money and increased liability over and above the emissions and the health to the residents of our city and so on, which we celebrate. And I would like to give a shout out, especially to aviation, who's, as you know, in the process of converting a much more complex and diverse fleet. And I guess one of the things I would say is, if you think you need support from the commission, certainly tell us what you think that would look like, or what would be helpful if there is resistance.
Yes, thank you, Bob, for that. I think whatever your standard, if the commission is supportive. I mean, I know, Bob, you're just one person. You seem like an important person, but don't want to speak for the whole commission here. But if the commission supports it, it would be great to either have some kind of resolution or letter of support from the commission explaining your position and also the reasons and rationale why this is a good or not good idea. Whatever it is, I think that will be helpful for us to take to even when we're doing press. I think it would be great to have that piece of information ready.
Yeah. Well, I'm with Bob, and that's a great move forward. I think a lot of us on the commission, we know enough to be dangerous about some of these areas, and I've been doing my part to educate myself and look into these areas of fleet electrification, and I think you're wise that this is in its infancy, and that over the next period of time, let's say 5 to 15 years, it's just going to be a tidal wave of change, and how to work that into city infrastructure for charging. All these things are big and unanswered questions that I see as kind of a blend of both policy and technical expertise. So that's awesome that you're really looking at that and working on that.
Rachel, do we have our quorum?
Yes, ma'am, we do.
Okay, let's go ahead and I would entertain a motion for us to draft a formal letter of support, and then we can go ahead and have discussion.
Yeah, Carol, that's right. That's what my hand up is about. I would love to make a motion that we write a letter in support of this.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, let's go ahead, Andy, and let you finish any discussion you want to have about the document before us, and then we'll call the vote.
Okay, well, and I didn't want to take up a lot of time about the specifics in the document. I would just offer you all the opportunity in the next couple of days, if you have any additional comments or thoughts regarding what that policy document should have in it, send that to me, and then I'll continue the conversation internally with our fleet manager and staff and the city manager to kind of put together something that kind of captures this.
Do we know how many vehicles we're talking about, Andy?
Dan, you want to chime in on that one?
Well, as Brian was alluding to, the easy do right now is passenger equipment. And we have ID'd a likely 200 to 250 units, which are eligible by classification. Of course, they may not be life cycled out yet. But those would be the preliminaries we'd be targeting until there's more available applicable equipment.
I assume Dan, you've also identified the ones that are going to be really tough, like fire trucks.
Yes, I mean, there in EV implications right now, there are large gaping holes, which we face as an organization trying to fit them in. Naturally, we continue to have interest in other technologies too, just to reduce our carbon load on the community, on global carbon load, and also emissions for health purposes.
Just out of interest, I've had a number of students look at police vehicles, and the challenge that the feedback we get on police vehicles is that the EVs aren't fast enough for chasing.
You know, I'll comment there. So we did a lot of research and background on that in Jersey City. And one comment about the chasing is that chasing really is not a thing that police are supposed to be doing, to be honest. Like, I hate to show their cards, but really, yeah, the point of the network of policing is to be able to not get in a car and speed down neighborhood roads and follow somebody. It is to take a step back and wait for the car to show up somewhere else, grab the license plate, that sort of thing. But the other side of it is that it is a different type of use case compared to a passenger vehicle, in that there are times where they are driving a lot and they need a certain range and capacity. They need to be able to hold a certain amount of equipment. Some of them do have ballistic panels in them for one reason or another. And so that is the challenge with the vehicle. But if you look at the vehicles they use now, they're basically retrofitted or upfitted SUVs. And now that SUVs and pickup trucks are entering the EV market, this should not be an issue too much longer. In Jersey City, we actually, it's kind of funny thinking about it, but we piloted 4 Nissan Leafs for a police department, marked with lights on top. And we called it a pilot because these were all concerns that they pushed back on. They said, we need certain types of equipment, it has to have certain durability, all these things. And so we said, look, why don't you put these in a non-first response capacity, not the ones responding first to the 911 call, but maybe somebody who's showing up afterwards, or detectives or something like that, just so you get a feel for it. And of course, you know, we left before they got to that point, but this was also the case with passenger vehicles. The second that everyone started using them and understanding that there really aren't any, there's actually less issues with electric vehicles, the complaints went away. So wonderful. We'll get there with police, probably not first, but once we get some new types of vehicles in, absolutely we'll be able to cycle them in.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Dan.
Wow.
So I have a question of Dan or Brian. Would it be useful if our letter references other related issues? Like, it seems convenient that Clay Como is now converting to EVs, and that Evergy already has done a great job and pretty much is high on the national ranks for having charging stations in place for the general public. Do those things help?
Yeah, I think the more that we as a collective group can point to in a sort of letter of support, the better. Yes, other cities that have done it, Feel free to point to Jersey City, New Jersey if you want. But yeah, any example you can give to sort of show people that this is not, we are not the first to do this. Hopefully we won't be the last, but also the risk is lower and lower because people are already doing it. There's already test cases on the road, and evidence we can point to that this can be successful.
Well, one of the things that I'd mentioned too, I think I mentioned this to Brian before and others, is that, as we expect technology to improve, particularly with the medium heavy duty vehicles, we have to think about the infrastructure needs as well. And so I know Scott mentioned it just a bit earlier, and some of the comments we received from Evergy as well, is we got to make sure that the infrastructure is going to be ready to go so that we don't create that bottleneck. So when we're buying those things as they're feasible, that infrastructure is already in place. So that's something that we need to work on kind of simultaneously to piloting the vehicles as we bring them on board.
Great point. Certainly something for any letter of support to note, just make us aware of a challenge that we need to deal with as well, or however you want to frame it.
Great.
So the motion before us is to prepare a letter of support for electrification of the city fleet as opportunities are available, correct? Are we ready to vote? Anybody have any questions before we go? If not, I will entertain a vote. Everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, anybody opposed? All right, I'm going to need some assistance in drafting the letter. Andy and Bob?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fair enough. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, the next, I would like to go back on the agenda and review the minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes?
Carol, do you need us to post the minutes for the commission to view, or are we good?
Well, I think everybody got a copy.
Yep, they should have.
Okay, if there are
Looked good to
no,
me.
okay, if there are no additions or corrections, can we have a motion to approve as written? Thank you, Molly. Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Oh, good. Any opposed? All right, we're going to move next to the EMC annual report. And for the benefit of our guests, I'll tell you briefly, the EMC has done an annual report frequently, not every year. And for years and years, they were sort of retrospective. And we decided a couple of years ago that it would be much more constructive if they were looking forward instead of backwards. Andy does an excellent job of reporting on compliance and keeping track of how we're doing day to day. So we have tried to make our report something that gives the council some insight into things that we see coming down the road. So we've started a draft for this year's report, and we have received a couple of comments on the draft already. Marty has commented about the urgency of going ahead and getting started with some of the regenerative soils work that needs to be done, and Julie provided some input that I would like her to discuss. And I shared that with Andy and Rachel and Laura. Can one of you put that on the screen? Julie, are you with us? Is Julie on the meeting?
I'm checking, Carol. I don't see her.
Okay, can you share what she sent? The document, can one of you share that on the screen?
Yeah, just a second.
Okay. In the meantime, I want to first thank Scott. Scott's the one that provided the bulk of the input for this document so far. And then Marty and Bob, I kind of edited some remarks from the email chain that you all had. Molly, you may see that as well. from your meetings last month. Okay, this, what you're seeing right now, this is the input from Julie. And she has suggested that we take the opportunity to talk a little bit about how we engage the public in our work. And then she's provided a list of specifics that I think is quite helpful. My suggestion would be that we include the initial narrative in the report itself, and the specifics is as an appendix. But I would be interested in your input on about that.
Andy, can you make that a little bit bigger? Should be able to do it down on the right-hand corner.
I love this concept. This is wonderful. It's very reminiscent of sort of World War II victory gardens, but forward. That's the kind of urgency we need. Right, Marty?
Yep. I'm not sure what you're referring to. I'm still trying to read this. Huh. It looks like something I want to read. I don't know whether this is the time.
Wow, a lot of stuff there.
Julie, this is wonderful.
It's great.
Well, I thought that we wouldn't want to include this whole shopping list as part of our main message because we have some big things to talk to them about that are more general. And these are good examples of things that have been done other places, not necessarily things that might be done here. And Marty, I thought, wanted to emphasize the importance on the generation of microbes of getting started now. And so I thought perhaps that was something we should mention in our letter, that there's a lead time to this, that it isn't like going down and buying a bag of fertilizer. You actually have to cultivate the change you want to have occur. Correct, Marty?
Yes, I'm trying to work toward the leaf season, and perhaps do a workshop, maybe a Zoom workshop or something, showing how to make one of these Johnson Sues, because it takes a full year after that for the compost inoculant to be ready. And what that does, for those who don't know, it increases the fungal content, and the fungus puts out the hyphae, the little tubules that go out through the soil to bring food and minerals to the and water to the plants. And so this is a specially made compost that requires a long time to get the diversity of organisms present that we need. So it's a whole different kind of way of doing compost.
Well, I was thinking that the thing that the council might not understand is exactly what you just said, that that there's a lead time to doing these things, and that it's important to start it sooner than instead of later, that it's not something that you can say you're going to do and then in the next year it's instantly there.
No, you're right. Yeah, you're right. The people have to make these things now or in the fall when the leaves are ready, and those leaves go through the biological process rather than a chemical process, and that biology takes a long time. It gathers microbes from the air, and those microbes flow through, much like our breathing. However, you get microbes from all over the world, and the greater the diversity, the greater the resilience. So anyway, it's, if you're brand new to it, it might not make sense, but I'll explain it 100 times if you like.
I was also interested in hearing from the other commissioners about the overall content of the report, things that we might be missing that we really need to include at this juncture. And if somebody has an idea of some specifics, if they would be willing to provide a little language.
Yeah, Carol, it's Nate. I saw some things that, or one big thing that I think was we pulled through in previous, I think it was the year before last report really well, but need to pull through now, and that's about, you know, building energy efficiency and more going in a little bit more deeper about the built environment and our opportunities for improvement on that front as an entire metro. And you know, that's something I can add a few bullet points in specific then if you'd like.
I think that would be great if you're willing to do that.
Totally.
Yeah, I guess that raises a question for me that maybe Nate or Bob would know, you know, about I've seen something in the news recently, I think, about the update on the building codes and where that is headed. And is that there's something that would make sense for us to say in the emerging issue, you know, report to nudge that along?
So Scott, that's a really good comment, and I can't say I know where it's going, but I think it's a great opportunity for us to nudge this in the right direction and to refer to that ongoing dialogue and continue to keep the targets out in front of all the stakeholders. And I think also that this is really an impressive list, but I think that, and this was on me, I mentioned this before and I didn't find the time to look at this and add to it. I think a clearer statement about carbon reductions and sequestration and soil building as one linked strategy would be an important part of this. And I can't do this until sometime the first of the week, but I will try to have a look and add some notes about that by then.
And Scott, I could comment about the energy code part of it in the sense that, you know, city planning has is more or less waiting to see how the energy code conversation goes through the climate protection planning process. They want to see what recommendations come out of that plan that will address the most recent energy code. So we don't know. We're still discussing this in-house and also with our climate consultant to see how those conversations are going to go. It is quite possible that we can't complete that conversation there. That'll roll back to city planning for further stakeholder involvement and discussions. But that's the current strategy at this point. And then also, if you're looking beyond for building performance standards, that's certainly on the table as well. But again, looking through the climate protection planning process to see if that gets vetted through that process and how, you know, after we do the data analysis, whether that will also assist the city in reaching its goals and targets. So that's where we're at.
Okay.
Carol, I would just add Ben Proffer couldn't be here today because he had to be at work. But he would, I know that he contacted me right before the meeting. He would like to have some kind of a statement about urgency in the report, that we need to keep pushing that this is urgent.
Okay. Okay.
And so I would suggest, I think that's a good comment, and linking that to equity is important too, so that we recognize this is a community effort and all the stakeholders have to be represented.
Correct. the other thing that we don't have in here and that we're getting ready to discuss next is anything really a nugget for the council looking forward to the results of the climate planning that's underway. And I think we need some kind of a connection there so that is, and so we emphasize the importance of that plan and the importance of linking that plan to what we do moving forward. So are you guys game for everybody providing input that they're going to provide in the next week and a half, 2 weeks? And then we get it out to everybody again and discuss it next month?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So I'll collect what you guys send me. I'll put it back together, send it back out. If you want to send more, send more. If you want to edit, you know, if you have things you want to emphasize differently, let me know, and then we can get it put together.
Can you send out Julie's wonderful document?
I can. She did send it in an email, but I certainly can send it. I may just incorporate it
Okay.
and send it all together, but because it would be easier if I got from Nate a little something, a little more from Bob, and then put it together so that we don't have so many loose pieces. Fair enough?
Yep.
Yes.
I love that document.
Yeah, that's great.
I'd like to see all the links and things.
Oh yeah.
Carol.
Well, now that I'll have to send you from just forward Julie's. As a matter of fact, I should just have we'll have Andy forward Julie's to everybody.
Okay.
So then you'll have all the live links. That'll be a better way to do it.
Thank you.
That's great.
Okay.
Look, just
Carol? Go ahead.
before I forget, I wanted to thank whoever put the second paragraph there together. You know, a lot of my pieces I threw in were just jumping straight to the chase without setting the stage. And that second paragraph that was originally drafted, I think was really, really spoke to me too, about how we missed the bigger point of connecting to the earth. And
I believe that was from David Dodds in your discussion, Bob and
Yes.
Molly
Yes, it
and
was.
Marty.
Yeah.
yeah, I thought that was just an excellent piece too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was all kind of robbed from their email chain. But you didn't mind, right?
With full permission
No.
and encouragement. Yeah.
Jensen, did you have
Yeah,
something to add?
There was just one other thought, and maybe Scott caught some of this, but I wonder if Andy has seen any trends in compliance that are being adopted in other municipalities that are, you know, a bit more ahead of the curve on where compliance is heading, that we ought to give space in this report so that that part of the office can also be swept up in some of this work.
No, I appreciate that, Jensen. Yeah, that's the way things are going right now on compliance. You know, with the regulators and of course the change in the administration, there's a lot of regulatory things being looked at to kind of things that have been rolled back during the previous administration that are now being revisited to move forward. So there is a recent comment period that opened up regarding the Clean Water Act. And so that's something that we talked about with staff just recently, that we need to get out to you to look at that. We'll try to do that this week or next so that we still are within the comment period. But in terms of the day-to-day regulatory affairs that the city does internally, it's been very quiet for the most part for the past couple of years. And we're ramping up a little bit to be more on point for land disturbance issues. You know, it looks like the regulators are starting to get back out in the field. You know, they're starting to do inspections. Plus, they're transitioning more to drone technology for purposes of inspections. So, you know, we have to kind of start looking at that as well. But, you know, I just had staff looking at that recently to see, okay, what are the mandates that the EPA is looking at for the next year or so, because they usually put out a year-by-year forecast of what their priorities are. And right now, clean water is definitely probably, I would say, at the top of that at this point. And then probably revisiting greenhouse gas emissions and things of that nature as well.
Okay. If there are not any other comments at this moment, and you all would like to just get your things together and send them, then I will do my level best to put them together and send them back out for more review. Fair enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Let me turn it over to Andy for a discussion of the planning effort.
Okay. I'm going to turn that over to Laura. And if I can, real quick, Rachel, can you try to connect with Julie? Julie's been trying to get in. We're having email exchanges, and for some reason, she's not able to get in. So Rachel, can you see if you can send her a new link or something?
Sure, I'll do that right now.
Thank you. And I'll turn it over to Laura to give us the climate protection update.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. It's been a busy couple of weeks on the climate planning process front. When I talked to you last time, we were in the process of hiring our climate justice workers, and they are now on board. One of them, Justice Horn, is in the meeting today. Hi, Justice. Thank you for joining us. And then I know it's great to have Justice on board. The other is Angelica Jelly Duckworth, who is not here today, but has been involved with Westside Housing and is a outreach and advocate for the Latino community. And she's amazing. We're so glad to have the two of you guys on board. It's going to make this a much easier process with community outreach. They each come with their own skill sets and have already added so much to the conversation just in the few weeks we've been getting them up to speed. And it has been a lot of that, filling out paperwork, getting badges, all the fun administrative stuff we have to do. On top of that, we actually brought Jelly and Justice into our interview process for our intern that will be working in the office, supporting us from a data perspective and supporting them out in the field as they do their work. And we are on day one of two days of interviews. So tomorrow we have 2 more candidates to interview, and then we'll make a final decision on that. We've also began development of our outreach materials. So what we have right now, and I don't know if any of you can see me, but we have we've started our little business cards that are similar to the Playbook ones. So we will have the ability for you to hand these out at events, and Jelly has started work on a flyer that is in draft form that we're finalizing tomorrow. And the other big change is if you go to the Kansas City Playbook website, for those of you may be familiar with this, which is the site for the planning for KC Planning's comp plan update. But you can now go to the Playbook site, type in CPRP, and you will reach our climate and protection and resiliency planning site. We've been working on this for a couple weeks now. And this is just the landing page, the first landing page for it. Jose in our office did the graphics. I think they're pretty darn great. It's good to see wind turbines and solar panels in front of things in Kansas City. And then, so this is just kind of the base page from where we'll be moving forward with our various phases of the plan. And so you'll be able to come here during any particular phase, and you'll be able to click on the green bar, which is the active phase, and learn more about what we're doing and how you can engage during that phase. And I'm just going to scroll down a little bit here because we've also, in our news and updates section here, where we will be updating people on a regular basis once this goes live to the public. I say you can go here, it is live, but it's mainly live so that our climate justice workers and Brindle staff can kind of figure out what we're missing and what we need. And we're kind of running a little pilot. When it's finally fully live, there will be a logo for it on the KC Playbook main page so people can access it there. And we will be doing a press release and a social media release that will go out on both our city social media and then the planning social media. And that's, we're hoping to happen in the next couple of weeks. I am out next week, so that may slow things down, but the week following, that will be my main goal. And you can scroll down here. It will show you what phase we're on in the plan, what each phase has in it, and also important links, which we are currently updating, and frequently requested documents. And as we get more and more frequently asked questions, and we'll start to compile those here. We plan for this to fill up with videos and updates pretty quickly once we get moving. And then this phase, which is not live yet, but I could show you real quick from our admin page. This is going to be the listening and learning from the community page. So as part of this, we have our stories page where people will be able to share their story. We also have started putting together surveys. This particular one is on climate change impacts. So we'll be asking people just in the community what is greatest concern to them as individuals from a neighborhood perspective, and then kind of just how concerned is Kansas City in general about the impact of climate change and if it's impacted their quality of life. So just kind of a little survey to get people started. And then the next piece of that we have also on this page, which is still in draft form. Fortunately, when you publish things on Bang the Table, if anybody clicks on them, they're kind of finalized and we have to clone them to do them over, which is why this isn't live for everybody quite yet. We're also putting together a climate issues and opportunities map, which will allow us to drop pins, various pins to show where there are flooding issues, where there's high heat issues, air quality issues, where they think we're doing well from a conservation or nature perspective or a trails perspective. And so they will be able to go on to a map of Kansas City and place a pin somewhere in Kansas City, which will also help us true up our data on where we're already experiencing climate impacts that we may not know about from high level federal or state data or even city data that we have. So we're trying to true this up on a neighborhood level and get neighborhood input into what it looks like on the ground. It's kind of like 311. The city can't do anything if people don't tell us what's wrong. So this is part of that process. So that's kind of what we've been looking at this point. So we're moving forward on everything. We're hoping our first event, there's a parks related event on the 17th. And I don't know, Justice, if it's you or Jelly that had planned on attending that event and starting to hand out some of these flyers and just information pieces and just start talking to community about their involvement. So I'm hoping that it'll be before the next meeting. We'll be sending out an email probably through Jerry's email list on, hey, it's time to get involved and start dropping your pins and sending in your climate stories. And I'm hoping everyone on this commission will, you've got a wealth of knowledge and that you'd be able to add to the story for us. So that's kind of where we are right now.
And
Laura,
if
would
I
you
can
go
real,
back to that website page? I'm a little confused about how it works, if you don't mind.
Oh, sure. It's not, like I said, it's not fully live yet. So, but yeah, let me get back. Andy. Okay. So
Well,
yeah,
like- go ahead,
Oh,
Bob.
yeah. Now go back before that where there are three, one was climate, one was collaborate, etc. Listen and learn was there.
Yeah.
So how do I know that only listen and learn is live? I can't click on collaborate and explore or prioritize and align, blah, blah, blah.
You can click as much as you want and it
But
will not
nothing
let you go there. Because, and it says up here, we're currently in the listen and learn phase. Click the green bar to join the conversation.
Yeah, I didn't see
But,
that.
oh, and I can click it. So unfortunately I did. The difference is we only want people in this particular phase right now. You can get more information on what's in the phases down here on the timeline, just kind of what we're going to be doing. Once the listen and learn phase is complete, it will go blue, and the collaborate and explore phase will turn green. However, you will still be able to click on the listen and learn phase at that point, see what we've already done, still respond to the surveys if you were late to the game and didn't get to respond before, and kind of see what work went into hitting the collaborate and explore phase.
Great.
So yeah, so going forward, you'll be able to click on them by the time we're mobilizing, which will be when the climate plan is complete out there in front of council's approved it and we're moving forward. Then they'll be able to go back and learn how we did this, as well as just click on the mobilize to see where we are at any given time, what particular projects we're working on.
And my other question was, you introduced Justin, and his colleague will be, what's her name?
It's Angelica Duckworth,
Oh.
but she goes by Jelly.
So that's what I thought you said. Like
Yes.
the jelly you put on toast?
Jellie.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. And their pictures will be over here where we have the who's listening on the main page. That's our office for mainly directing high level questions. On the listen and learn page, you'll have Jelly and Justice's contact information over here so community can reach out to them directly.
I can see some logos or brands built around Jelly and Justice.
Yeah, we've avoided the JJ comments up till now. I'm sure something's gonna happen eventually.
So the other thing related that you reminded me of is what happens to Jerry's email list after November 30?
That is a really good question, and I actually had Jerry send me his entire email list. I've put it.
That's valuable.
It's fun. I've put it into a Excel spreadsheet at this point, and I'm cleaning up some of the data. There's some folks in there that I know aren't working where they are anymore, and so cleaning up some of the data. Jerry, I can only imagine how many out of offices or returned emails you get. And then that is actually going to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach out to everyone on there and see if they're interested in getting the OEQ newsletter, because we're going to have a quarterly newsletter at first, just to see if we can keep up that level of content, and at this point, if we can keep up that level of work in our office to keep that newsletter going. And at that point, after that, it might become monthly. We don't know, but that email list will be rolled into that. And of course, if there's something in the meantime that needs to go out to a larger group that isn't news, can't wait on a newsletter, I will still be sending out periodic updates through Jerry's email list and improving Jerry's email list.
Well, and it's safe to say, I know Jerry, I don't think he can probably keep his hands off of kind of staying in the game. So it's possible he may be sending some things out on his own as well. So.
Yeah, who's going to do the jelly?
I did want to comment real quick. One other thing associated with the climate protection planning process is that the mayor had finally made appointments to the steering committee. So that was about 3 weeks ago or so. We still need to kind of do some introductory emails to the committee, and then we're kind of in consultation with our consultant as well to kind of plan out when the next steering committee meeting will be. So, but just thought the commission might want to know that those appointments have been made.
Thank you, Andy. The next thing on our agenda is the Environmental Achievement Awards planning, and I was hoping that Molly would take the lead.
Okay. Okay. We met last week, and for this year's Environmental Management Awards, and we had 8 applicants this year, so very healthy nomination. One of them was empty, but and so didn't get processed because there wasn't anything there. But so 7 full nominations, which was great. And so what we proposed and for you guys to consider and potentially vote on are 5 projects for awards, one of which is honorable mention. So we'll give you a very brief overview of these projects. I think you guys are all have access to the nominations. Laura, is that right? Or we can certainly send them out to everyone.
I don't know that I sent them all out, but I will check. And if I haven't, I will send them now.
Okay. The first one was the water department, and they're always very good about submitting things. And this is someone who went above and beyond their job, which is something we talk about almost yearly, on applying a drone. That's why I asked about the drones. I didn't know how much drone usage is happening in the city, but they used the drone on 2 separate projects to help. One was illicit discharge investigation on Boone Creek. They couldn't get to the source of the discharge because of underbrush and inability to access it. So with the drone usage from this person in the water department, they were able to source it. And then another use was using the drone to support water research. And so we thought that was a good and innovative use, and helped the water department and solved issues. And so we nominated that for an award, an achievement award. The next one was one that we thought, Nate and I agreed, I think everybody agreed that this one was really innovative. It was the maintenance division and small engine, and they created a new fuel mix to reduce carbon and also to make the machinery run better. And it was fully documented. All kinds of graphs, which make us happy, showing the application of and the effectiveness of this fuel mix. So that one we nominated for an award because not only it's demonstrated impact, but also novel and innovation in applying sustainable practices. Then we had Parks Ambassadors Program, which is actually different. I asked this from the award we gave out last year, and this was a program that actually recruited 120 volunteers from all over the place to be ambassadors to specific parks. They receive training and they participate 3 hours a month, and their social media, it covers 220 parks. There's 1,200 acres of parkland, 158 miles of trails and bikes. There's a Facebook page and work teams and projects. And we felt that was deserving also of an award because it generated a lot of volunteers, a lot of hours. It was a very successful program. And that's 3. The fourth one is someone who, Klender, this is a Lifetime Environmental Stewardship Award and we gave out our first one last year. This person has had 55 years of keeping KC water clean, and many over the years working.
Actually, Molly, that's for 2 people. It was a dual application for Mike Klender,
Right.
who's the lead at the water plant, and Carl Stepp, and between them they have 55 years.
Okay, thank you.
That's, gosh,
Clint
Mike would be
and
real
Stepp.
old.
And so we're gathering more details, as Andy has done in the past, and Laura's doing this, following up on all of these things to get the pictures and get more specific examples. And we thought that again was a worthy of our lifetime environmental stewardship. And then there was a program where the Girl Scouts partnered with the city on environmental leadership. They produced a social media campaign for solid waste and proper things to recycle. And the Girl Scouts made the video. They were not recycling old cookies. And it was a really cute video, but not only were they informing the public, they are also learning this as well. So there was education going in both directions. And we felt this was, and we have web links if you want to see it, that this was worthy of an honorable mention. And then there were 2 more, and we felt they should resubmit next year. They weren't quite complete and did not have full results yet, and would make good awards for next year. So that's very brief, and for those of you who haven't actually read these things, probably not sufficient information. Does anybody want more information on the individual? So that's what we put forward for the commission to vote on or have questions as our potential takes for this year.
And I would just like to say, as a participant in the meeting, that Molly did a wonderful job, and I wholeheartedly concur with the recommendations.
That's right. We were pretty unanimous, I think. Carol, Laura, Scott, and Nate, yes, on the outcomes.
Yeah, I was the wet blanket who didn't
Like
give
the
the Girl Scouts their full due. So if you want to direct any ire towards about that decision, you can do it to me.
Well, we
No,
all
we're just going to send you a bunch of stale cookies.
We all agreed an honorable mention was appropriate.
Yep. Definitely.
Nate, we're going to send about 3 Girl Scout troops by your house with cookies this year.
Well, and just one of the things we're possibly looking at for the awards is because we have had scouts involved in projects in the past. And so we had the idea that it might be really neat to give them a KC Green badge with our KC Green logo on it, that they could put on their sashes with their other badges. So that might be just as good as an award for them.
Although in the scouting world, there's a huge process to make it formal badge. So it might just be a tokeny thing.
Oh, it's totally tokeny, but as a former Girl Scout, what we were allowed to put on our sashes and when we actually put on our sashes were 2 totally different things.
Can we have a motion to approve the committee? Oh, go ahead.
I move that we approve the recommendation of the committee and appreciate the time and energy Molly, you and the rest spend every year in trying to reduce this to something that really makes sense for the rest of us. So thanks for that work.
Yeah, it was a very efficient meeting.
We have a second? Okay.
This is Jude.
Everybody in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay.
If you want more details, I mean, there's loads of details. If you want more details, we're happy to provide notes and comments and the actual applications.
I just sent the applications over to everyone. I've also, I took pretty good notes on what we still needed and what was in there, and I'm gonna send another separate email because I wanted to get those out too quickly with the recommendations that Molly's team had, and then kind of how we got to where we are. As
Laura,
on top of,
go ahead. I was hoping you would talk about the scheduling of the awards. Is that where you were headed?
Perfect timing. That's exactly what I was heading towards. So we have kind of gone back and forth on whether or not the Environmental Achievement Awards were going to be in person or virtual this year. And so the commission needs to make a decision on whether or not they think it's in the best interest to do it. I mean, we've got a lot going on again with the Delta variant, whether or not we want to try to have these in person or do them virtual again. And then we need to discuss the possibility of not having it in August. We would normally have this the following month, which would put it at August 11th. But because we haven't decided whether it's going to be virtual or in person, we haven't reached out to the mayor or the city manager to get on their schedules as of yet, because we didn't know if they'd actually be coming in the video, those kind of things. So there's the possibility to move it to September. Also, if we do want to give the Girl Scouts an honorable mention and get them to be part of the event and get them badges or then I've got to have some time to actually get those ordered, and we all know how the mail's been lately. So just those are just kind of a couple of possible issues with having it in August. Can we make it work in August? Probably. So I guess you guys need to decide August, September, person, not in person, so we can get planning.
So we need to kind of get feedback from the commission. I believe last year we did it in September. Is that correct?
That is correct, and we did it virtually in September, and gave the mayor a chance to put in a video for it since he couldn't make it. We might be able to get on both their calendars. It's early enough. You never know.
I would be really interested in what the commission's preference is.
I'd prefer September.
Marty, you're on mute.
The Girl Scouts, how old are they? Are they coming? Or is that next year? I missed that.
That's this year.
Okay. Are they vaccinated? I don't want to kill Girl Scouts.
Well, and that's a good point. I'm not sure exactly how old they are.
I don't think they're 16.
You only have to be 12 to be vaccinated.
Oh, okay.
So I'd have to, I could find that out from Shannon. That's another question I could ask.
I guess I'm not sure we have enough information to make an informed decision, but I would lobby, assuming everyone's been vaccinated, to do it in person, because I believe that, and especially if the mayor and or manager can be there, because I think one of the benefits of this program is the direct recognition from the executives at City Hall and from us of the exemplary work that these individuals are doing. And I think that's a lot more effective in person than it is by Zoom or some other means. So if it's possible, and if we can learn that by doing a little inquiry and then making a more informed decision, I think delaying it a month to accomplish that would be a good move.
Bob?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Jerry. I would suggest another element to consider is if we're talking about meeting in person, we need time to secure a location that will be as safe as possible. And
right.
may need more. We may need more than 3 weeks to do that.
Does the park department have any kind of pavilion that has electronic access so that we could have the presentation but be outdoors or be in a well-ventilated space?
We've been trying to think about that. I mean, we talked about Starlight, but I mean, that's a huge venue. So the parks department does have a show wagon that they take around, that they have a generator, and it's a big stage, and they could, we could actually have the stage, people sitting somewhere in front of that stage. But like thinking of pavilions, we couldn't think of any in our office externally where we could actually have a PowerPoint running that you'd be able to see, especially with glare at 4 or 5 o'clock at night.
What about the pavilion at Luce? It's stone, but you could probably hang up a white sheet under the.
You'd have to have a really good projector to see it with that much daylight. So, okay.
But going back to Starlight, they have kind of a, I don't know what you call it, backstage area that's pretty big. Is there any way to look at that space to see if do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yes. And they're used to doing this kind of thing in addition to the performances. So that's probably worth checking.
I don't know if we could get it. We'd have to see about getting it for free on that day, but we could definitely look into it. So I guess the first question is everyone okay with moving it to September? so we can.
Do we have anybody that objects to moving it to September? Sounds like everybody's okay.
Okay, so let's one down. So we've got September down. And then as far as in person, that was another thing. We've been having it at the health department. If we decide to have it in person and we have to end up having to have it indoors, we'd probably have to look at a different venue than health, just for size and just because they are the health department, they have a kind of more stringent rules for COVID-19 right now. So we'd have to maybe look at it a larger inside venue if we do it inside, and then there's the possibility of outdoors, but there's always the possibility of a major storm and those kind of things too when you're outdoors. So
I wondered too about the convention facilities, if they might have a spot for us.
Yeah, there's certainly conventions. Also, did you guys talk about the Linwood Community Center and or the Cultural Heritage
Center? You mean the Mohart Center?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's
Mohart as well as Bruce Watkins.
Yeah.
There's a auditorium in the Mohart Center. It's a city-owned facility, and then Bruce R. Watkins Cultural Heritage Center as a place we could have it as well.
Yeah, as well as the Gem Theater. I'd forgotten about those folks too.
Well, it sounds like maybe there are some good options.
Have it inside.
Well, I'm all for leaving it in your capable hands.
So I guess what we can do is we can do a little research, call around on the limits of people we can have at some of these sites, and then get back to you with like a list of possibilities. Would that be good, Carol?
I think that would be fine, but we also trust your judgment. You don't really need us to weigh in on this too heavily. If you think a place is particularly good, why don't you just coordinate with Molly, because Molly usually does the presentation, and I think it matters more to her work than to the rest of us who just need to figure out how to get there. Fair enough?
If we need a projector, I have a good mobile projector. We did many a pirate movie on the side of the house. So I've done outdoor projecting for a while.
We have one in OEQ too. And I'm sure Parks has something. I can reach out to Heidi and see what she's got for outdoor options.
Okay, well, it sounds like we have a plan.
I think we should invite the drones.
Well, they may be there anyway, whether we like it or not.
Video.
I plan on telling Mr. Kenner that if he wants to come to the awards ceremony, he has to bring the drone.
Yeah.
That'd be fun. Are we done, Andy? Are you ready to go to the OEQ report?
Sure, I can do that. I was only expecting to have 5 minutes, so I sort of have a 5-minute report, but there's not a lot of new things to really speak to. We are, to say the least, very much engaged with very many projects. Obviously, you heard about the climate protection planning process, and it's an all hands on deck kind of thing here. Everybody's here involved in that in some way, shape, or form. Along with that, we're also very much working on our reporting, our CDP reporting, which is due at the end of this month, which is what kind of help gauges or ranks cities. And last year we went from a D rating to a B rating, so we're certainly hoping to do better this year. But we're also very much engaged with the Lead for Cities project that we were kind of joined with the latest cohort on that. So we're just now starting to get into the data collection phase of that particular project. And then Chris, our analyst, is knee deep in our energy cap project with our energy manager, as well as the benchmarking ordinance and compliance with that. So I would say there is certainly lots of things going on with the 7 of us here that are just trying to keep on top of everything and keep things moving forward. With that, I would just kind of throw out just a couple of updates on some projects that kind of go beyond what our office is focusing on. First off, it would be the LED conversion project. That they're, I think it's known by now that the original bids on that project were thrown out because of a kind of ran out of time, but there's also a problem with the way that was put out for bid without really addressing the financing options. So they are revisiting that and trying to look at how that RFP will be put together to be reissued. And so I don't have an exact date of when that's going to go out, but should be shortly. That will address the the proposal part of it. There's also a pilot or demonstration project that the city wants to do to kind of basically show the community what we're looking to do in terms of LED conversion. Of course, this is not just for the community, but for council. We're also going to be kind of piloting or trying out some different manufacturer bulbs as well. Streets and Traffic has some, they just kind of want to try out some of the products. So that's going to be part of this pilot as well. And just recently, we've kind of decided to have two pilots, two demonstration areas. The first one is 27th and Benton Boulevard in that general area. There's already LEDs down in that particular part of the city, and they'll be adding the 3,000 LED options on a couple of these streets. So in theory, you'll be able to kind of stand at one intersection and you'll look one direction and you'll see one type of LED lamp, and then you'll be able to look in a different direction and see a different. So they're looking at the Northland as the second demonstration site. That site has not been selected yet. They're kind of looking at where there are already 4,000 LED already installed along Berry Road and some other areas. And there's actually a neighborhood up north that has 4,000 LED. So I think they're trying to look to see how we can use those existing lamps and then add the 3,000 LEDs as well. So still lots of conversations being had internally in terms of what that demonstration project looks like and engagement with the community and any particular feedback that we're looking to gather. So we'll just kind of keep you posted on any real details in that regard. The next one would be about Renewable Direct. Many of you know that we signed an agreement with Evergy back several months ago to bring Renewable Direct, a power purchase agreement for both territories, the Missouri West Territory and the Missouri Metro Territory, to kind of bring renewable energy to Kansas City, particularly our city operations. And the Missouri West Territory, that particular wind farm, Cimarron Bend 3, went online back in December. So this is, I have some good news to report in that regard. I had Evergy kind of run some numbers on how well that particular wind farm is performing for the city. And between January and June of this year, the city has earned over $800,000 in credits towards our electricity bills. So that particular one is knocking it out of the park. Now, I'm going to put the caveat on that is not going to be the norm. Partly, we took advantage of the wholesale prices of energy, particularly from the wind farm, back in February when there was a spike in the energy prices. So we ended up really kind of profiting from that particular incident. So normally we shouldn't expect that kind of those kinds of dollars coming back to the city. But either way, we have a surplus of dollars or credits to basically help pay for the electricity usage in the Northland, which is the territory I'm talking about. So trying to figure out, because we haven't paid that amount in utility bills, so we're trying to figure out, I've got credits to use for the upcoming year to basically pay for electricity bills in the Northland. So That's the good news. I had the bad news to this is that the Missouri metro territory, which is the bulk of what the city's energy usage is, that particular developer, which that wind farm was known as Expedition, Evergy, and that particular developer kind of had a falling out. And so that particular agreement and arrangement is no longer on the table. So it's kind of unfortunate for us because that is the bulk of our energy usage. So we were originally expecting to be online with that one by the end of this calendar year. I don't know that that's going to happen. Evergy is in the middle of conversations with other developers. They are being fairly tight-lipped about how those conversations are going and who those developers are. But they did say that there was some positive movement in that area and in that directions. But when you're in negotiations like that, that's not something they want to let get out beyond those specific parties. So it seems positive, and it can again address wind, it can address solar, whatever. And the other thing is it doesn't necessarily have to be a farm that needs to go through new construction. If there is a particular farm that has capacity for what the city needs, which is somewhere around 58 megawatts, if they can absorb that at a particular location, then we might be back in the game. So that's the good and bad news of Renewable Direct right now.
Thank you.
So that's really about all I had for the OEQ report, unless the commission has any specific questions about any particular projects or programs we're working on. We as an office are back in City Hall, all of us, as of last week. And so from my perspective, it's good to have everybody back together, and it's good to see the teamwork that seems to be much more evident to me when we're together than when we're all virtual. So. So with that, any questions?
Yeah, it would be nice to see everybody.
Yeah, and that's Carol, in terms of the commission meeting, we did look at that briefly, and I think we need a little more time we'll work it out for the award ceremony. But I think that one of the issues we had for a regular standard commission meeting is, I think you're going to have to make that decision about, are you okay with going back to a standard format where it's just in-person meetings minus the virtual component? Because we unfortunately in the city don't have the technology. It's isolated where it is in the city, in various departments and particular conference rooms that aren't necessarily large enough to handle a commission of this size. So to be able to do an in-person with the virtual component, it would be a challenge to kind of figure that out for us at this point. So I'm certainly, if the commission is fine with going back to the standard format of meeting, we just need to find a location that is amenable and where the policies would allow that kind of a meeting to happen. Obviously, the health department is probably not going to be the site for that until things loosen up, and health is trying to be a little bit more protective than most other sites. But if you want to continue virtual, we can continue to do that as well. So at some point, not necessarily for next month or for the September award ceremony, but maybe for August, for next month, let me know what your thoughts are, and we can certainly investigate more what your wishes are.
Are other commissions meeting in person?
Yeah, and that's a good question. I don't know.
What are the mask policies at City Hall? Are they asking people who are not vaccinated to wear masks?
Yeah, vaccinated or not vaccinated, it doesn't matter. You have to wear a mask. So yeah, if you're in any of the community spaces, conference rooms, you are to wear a mask, unless if you're in a conference room and everybody declares that they've been vaccinated, then you can remove your masks. But in general, moving through City Hall, the lobbies, the elevators, yeah, it's still with a mask.
Actually, I think that's good. I think that's helpful.
Yeah.
What about at the university? What are they doing there?
We are not allowed to ask anyone if they are vaccinated. And we are going back into full in-person in the fall. So, and masking is optional. You're still not allowed to smoke in buildings, but so I will be teaching in a mask next fall. I will be taking students on canoe trips because that's 6-foot distancing and outdoor. But yeah, the mask policy is optional at this point, and what is concerning is that you're not allowed to ask anybody if they're vaccinated.
So if we had a meeting in a city facility, we could require masks as sort of as a policy matter. The commission could require people to wear masks. Or at another, for example, right?
Sorry, Carol, you broke up on that.
I said, if we have our meeting in a city facility, any city facility, it would be consistent with city policy to require everyone to wear a mask.
Yes.
Great.
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes a difference. That makes a difference to people's comfort level in getting together in person. And then what do you do when people are talking? They take the mask off, or they just talk through the mask?
Yeah, like I said, unless everybody declares that they're vaccinated, you still keep your mask on when you're speaking.
Okay. Okay. Well, do other commissioners have a reaction to that of any kind that you'd like to share?
It would take a long time.
Oh, okay. Well, with this Delta variant thing and with our community not having the vaccination rate we would like them to have, I think it's prudent that we think about this pretty carefully.
Absolutely.
Well, a friend of ours, the parents had the full Pfizer, and their kids got it somewhere, and they both got it again. So it was a mild case, but it was very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what the stats are on that sort of thing, but and I don't know if it was the Delta variant that they got or not. So, just stuff.
Let's go ahead and take time to hear from our visitors today. Do we have anyone who's visiting the meeting today that would like to introduce yourself and express any comments or concerns that you may have? Okay, Robin? You're muted right now. Okay, there you go.
I see your hand.
Okay. My computer's freezing up a little. Yeah, I was just curious about the climate protection plan, if there was a new greenhouse gas inventory being done, or what the plan is around that.
Yes, actually, we're in the process of doing the greenhouse gas inventory now. We will have high-level numbers, we're hoping, in time to finish our CDP report by July 29th. So we're hoping to have it by the 26th. The big issue, we've got all our community-wide data in. That's good and ready to go. Where we're running into issues is internally, because the city switched over from our previous energy management system to Energy Cap kind of during this time frame where we're working on this and trying to make sure we have the correct data, that we've got all the data in Energy Cap that we need, is kind of slowing us down. Actually, that's what I'm kind of doing here on the side, is truing up Spire data right now. But yeah, that is definitely the plan. That may not be the final copy that's available to the public in July, because we'll probably just have a spreadsheet with numbers by then. But there will be, hopefully by, gosh, mid-August, unless we have a problem, an actual digestible copy that we can send out. And as part of it, I mean, our consultant will be generating our business as usual graphing and everything for that. So that should at least be available fairly quickly to look at.
Thank you.
If I could add one comment to that also, at the time we get the spreadsheets, by contract with our consultant, their spreadsheets have proprietary equations and data in them that prohibits us from just distributing their spreadsheet. So we won't do that. We won't be doing that publicly.
Yeah, the actual, like the spreadsheet, no, but the numbers can go out publicly.
Yes.
And all the graphs we make out of those numbers can go out publicly.
Yes.
Do we have other guests that would like to?
Yeah, Billy's got his hand up from Sierra.
Hi, hey all, Billy Davies, 6th District, and just here speaking on my own behalf, but also yes, Conservation Program Coordinator with the Sierra Club Missouri chapter. Just want to congratulate the city on its progress made, being part of the Renewables Direct program and moving municipal operations towards 100% renewable energy. Important for cities to set examples like this as we continue to take action that supports our community's health and the planet. And just would like to also just thank the EMC at this board in particular for its taking action to advocate on behalf of Kansas Cityans through your regular inquiries to city staff, to the city council, and just continuing to help be an engine for change for the better as we continue to move on to doing great things like the climate protection plan. So thank you all.
You're
and
welcome,
Billy,
because we
Billy,
know they
thanks
work
to
hard.
you and your colleagues.
Yeah, I
staying
can't
involved.
begin to say, yeah, how many times the Sierra Club has been an instigator and assistant in all of those activities. Bob, I wondered if you wanted to share any thoughts. I've been kind of railroading here.
You've been doing a great job. I just one thing that I'd like to share with the commissioners and our guests as well. We, meaning my little foundation, the Foundation for Regeneration, has received a grant from EDC to take a new look at the Blue River Valley. And so it's a minor grant, but the intention of it is what attorneys might call a discovery phase, where we interview the stakeholders and some of the consultants on the recent studies that have been done in that valley, and ask some of the obvious questions. For example, the last study was very comprehensive. It had 10 recommendations. That was several years ago. None of those 10 have been implemented. And so one of the questions would be, why not? And if you were starting over today, what would you do different? So if any of you have knowledge about any of those issues, I and my colleagues would be delighted to know about that as we are just beginning that process. The other thing I'd like to share is one of our key partners is the Nature Conservancy, who has committed to create a conservation bank that would benefit any development in the Blue River Valley. So going forward, they would, any new development or redevelopment would have the partnership with the Conservancy and a conservation bank in terms of performance for that new work being done. So again, I'm excited about this, but more importantly, we would love to have input from any of you or people you think could inform a better path forward.
Molly, you're on mute.
Sorry. Does the group put out a report?
We will put out a report, but probably at the end of this first phase, this discovery phase, that report would be made available to initially the Economic Development Corp and the sponsor, the source of money, which is Industrial Development Authority.
Are the 10 implementations public?
Yes. Yeah. And Molly, I don't know where you're going to take your students on a canoe trip, but I'd recommend the Blue River. And we're going to do that. We and the consultant team are going to do the Blue River. And the outfitters all tell us they haven't done it before.
We will do the Blue. The second week of September, we do the Buffalo. Although that takes us right down through the heart of the COVID hotspot. So I may be rethinking that.
Yeah. Yeah, Buffalo's beautiful, but this is probably not a great time to be doing that.
Molly, you could take him on the Missouri next week, so I get to see him.
Well, they don't do anything during the summer. It's very hard to get them out. It's during a class thing. You'll have to take me on the Missouri. I have not done the Missouri. I'm partial to water you can see through.
Well, next week is when 400 kayakers.
Objects in it too.
Next week is when 400 kayakers are gonna take that journey to St. Louis. So,
are you gonna do it?
I'm safety crew. I get a boat with a motor. It's fabulous.
Do we have any old or new business? I don't have anything that I know of. Well, you guys, are we going to actually be done early?
We covered a lot of ground.
Well, if we're done early, what I think that means is everybody needs to get out their pen and paper or their typewriter or their keyboard. I'm using some really bad terms here. Get out their keyboard and type up their thoughts and send them on.
I really like Julie's, how her program works very, very well with Marty's. They're very integral.
Well, and I think is Julie on?
I am.
Oh, good.
Yes, we can hear you.
I had a major problem getting on, but Rachel helped me, so I'm on.
Well, Julie, on behalf of everyone, we were all complimenting you earlier for what you shared and giving us a jump start on what we might do with this annual report.
Oh, good. I mean, I'm just, like all of you, I'm looking at what are things where we really engage people. And it was interesting. Last night I went to the Discovery Center, and it was a orientation for the Missouri Naturalist Program, and they were expecting about 30 people, and about 75 people showed up. Yay. And then they get this though, they have a limit of 35 people, so everybody has to apply, and then they're going to pick what they consider to be the best 35. And I thought, no, take everyone, make 2 groups.
Ouch, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And one of the board members actually suggested that, and the organizers said no. So I was like, okay, I have to write a really compelling application and pass a background check, which I'm not as worried about.
And this was one of the comments I wanted to make this is from perspective of city staff, if you don't mind, on Julie's document, if the commission doesn't mind. I absolutely love Julie's document, but I know kind of where Discovery Center, the Department of Conservation is coming from, and I think it's kind of the same place we're coming from, is a lot of those programs are super awesome programs, and they're really interesting, but what they usually come with is no money and no staff. And so, they may not have the staff time at this point, especially with as strapped as everyone is, to do that second cohort. It may not be an order of not wanting to. And specifically, Julie, I was looking at some of the rain rebate programs, and I tried forever at Casey Water, where we had funding, to get those rebates in place as part of the program. And the response was always, we can afford the rebates, but what we can't afford is we can't hire new staff to actually see if things are being implemented correctly. And unless, Laura, you can do all the paperwork on the city side to make sure we're meeting all the requirements for our taxpayers and ratepayers, then we can't do it. And that was pretty much a full-time job. In Johnson County, I think there's like 1.5 people that were part of that program. So just any recommendation that comes for these great programs, it's not just the funding, it's whether or not the structure is in place to be able to hire the employees required to make it work. And just, I think that's really part of sustainability and just making it an equitable process. If we put in programs that and put more burden on city staff that are already overworked, or when they give the money for the programs but they don't give more staff for the programs, it's still not sustainable. And I'm hoping you guys will take that into consideration in the way you write up your reporting.
So Laura, I have a question.
Sure.
The reason I put in the partners, there are obviously a lot of not really great nonprofit organizations that are doing each one of them a piece of this work. And my thought is that it needs to be under one big umbrella with an incredible marketing campaign, which does require funding. But would the city even consider contracting that work out to one or more of these organizations or some other organization that's already set up and doing it? So then they are the ones managing the rebates, and the city does not have a staff person doing it.
It's possible that they would still have to have staff to manage the contracts internally, which we could probably manage something like that. But and Jerry, I can have you weigh on. You've been managing contracts with nonprofits for a while now, on what that looks like. But it's still a pretty intense process internally for us. And then there's also, we have to send out a request for proposals, and we have to be very transparent, especially if we're using city funds, and getting the right contractor in there. And the right contractor may not always be the right contractor. That's all I'm going to say on that. So we may not get bridging the gap in the end, and what we may get may look really good on paper, that kind of thing. So, but yes, we contract, the water department contracts with Bridging the Gap now for their Green Stewards program, which is their people with barriers to work. They're teaching them how to work green infrastructure projects for the city. So they do that now. And Casey Water actually also does a grant program where they just hand money to nonprofits to do the work themselves. And I used to run that program as well out of Casey Water to get stormwater education out there. So, there are different ways to do it. It's just when things go through a council process and all the logistics need to be made sure that they're written up front in the process of what goes to council so they can make an informed decision.
Yeah. I do know that Bridging the Gap has some sort of contract with Johnson County because they manage a promotion which is going on right now. It always happens in the month of July for the Contain the Rain program. And I don't know what the extent of that contract is. I could ask Kristen and find out, but so they are already managing some piece of it.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what that looks like now, because it's been a few years since I've been out of that realm. But I do remember that in order to make sure the city was actually getting the bang for their buck, you put in a rain garden. They have to make sure that you have to maintain it for, I think it was 3 years or 5 years or something to be able to get your 50% reimbursement. And so then that means 3 to 5 years of a city employee going out and doing an inspection on this property. And so there's just a lot of things in the background. So I don't know that I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I think it's an amazing idea. I just want to make sure that I love more people to put things in front of council like that, but I also want them to put in front of council that there's heavy employee costs associated with that, and we need to actually hire the employees. And they need to hire new employees, not just say we're going to staff this office with existing employees, because existing employees are currently doing the job of the 200 plus employees that are retiring right now. Is it 200 plus, Andy?
280-ish, which
200.
this is a good time for a public service announcement. We are hiring, and we have 42 pages of want ads, essentially, of positions all across the board. It's grown, it's doubled literally in the past month. So we're now getting beyond the hiring freeze part and now trying to backfill a year's worth of hiring freeze and retirements, et cetera, et cetera. So, anybody who needs a job, we are certainly hiring.
Maybe there's an opportunity for a drone operator to do some of this remote inspection on rain gardens and other things.
Well, and right now, our KC Water guy is actually getting an Environmental Achievement Award because he went above and beyond to do this extra drone work because it was needed. Because his literal job is like running the inspections group, but this is something he cares enough about to do in his free time. And I feel like Mark's had his hand up forever. I'm sorry, Mark. I keep just talking.
I'm not sure if I'm on mute or not. This is my first time on a meeting. I am a guest. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well, thank you for giving me an opportunity to share real quickly. I don't want to keep the meeting going longer. Actually, I've been working in the urban agricultural realm for about 8 years. I have 11 acres in Kansas City, right on I-35, just about 5 minutes from downtown Kansas City. I have greenhouses that are all operating on water catchment, literally water out of the sky. And Vera Williams actually is the one that kind of encouraged me to be a guest on this and to get involved in this organization of great minds and brilliant people and people who are in decision-making positions. I do have a quick note on what it's like to deal with the KC Water Department when you're an urban farmer. If that's okay, I'd like to share it. If not, I could always bring it another time. Go for it?
Yeah, please share.
Okay. If you're an urban farmer in the city of Kansas City and you're on city water, you're charged for water 3 times sometimes. For instance, I'm charged for water that comes in, and then that on my water bill, there's a sewer charge. Yet, even when I was using extensively city water, I was being charged for not only the water coming in onto my property, and I was using it to water plants. I have 4 greenhouses that are 100 by 30, and then a couple of high tunnels. So we were using a lot of water, and me being a farmer, I noticed the bills were being very high. And then when I started inquiring, which I did at City Hall actually, I started discovering that I was being charged for water that I was using to water plants and went right down into a gravel or soil catchment. And yet I was being charged more for my sewage than I was for the water coming in to my property. And with those greenhouses, I actually function now all on catchment water off the tops of my greenhouses. I can store up to 18,000 gallons of water, and I use it for my animals and all my plants. And we're currently in the place of making that water potable for humans as well through filtering systems, reverse osmosis, and just all kinds of different possibilities. So right now have my water completely shut off, but I'm still being charged for sewers because I have one flushable toilet on the property and really no floor drains or anything. And my water bill continues to rise. I've been in contact with the water company much. I work with a gentleman named John Clarkson from KC Water. And even in recent, like the last month, I've been inquiring how to get my water bill settled. And it's really been, the answer is we have no formula for urban farmers. We don't have anything in our billing that takes care of exactly what your situation is. And so I've actually been working on this problem for about 5 years. So that's just a comment. I take all of these things and just apply them to the possibility that other urban farmers are going to be needing the same formula that I have for the purpose of providing good food, organic food to the city of Kansas City. I also construct all my own soil here. I do work with Marty Kraft. He's my hero. He's a gentleman who has long seen the value of good soil. And we are actually taking over the world one backyard at a time through our soil mixes because of the fungi development, the bacterial development. As my roots in the 4-packs that I sell people with tomato plants and whatnot, there's literally the potential of spreading good soil in every plant that I sell someone to put in their garden. It's just a process of communities growing and giving them fresh water, if at all possible, through rain and through catchment systems. So that's just a few of the challenges of urban farming. I am working with the University of Missouri, UMKC, on Kansas City's planning grant for their 2050 initiative of being a smart city. And one of those initial needs is that we have smart farming. So I've been working with UMKC for over 2 years on different kinds of measuring devices where we can actually look in my greenhouses and see where the humidity is being caught and the temperatures, the soil temperatures and whatnot. So on paper, I'm the host farm for Kansas City's urban farming development through the University of Missouri and UMKC. And yet I still cannot get a water bill solved. And I can't be, well, the water department actually sent out people to examine like my water catchment systems and whatnot, talked about their brilliance, talked about how they would work in sustainable models. And we've proven it for even through droughts that we can catch enough water right off of our greenhouse covers to actually function as a farm and grow a lot of food and train a lot of people in the area of growing their own food and even knowing what good food is so that when they go looking for it, they know what to look for. We do all kinds of classes here. And this is not a commercial for me, but it is. Actually, I am on probation right now with the city of Kansas City because I give my chickens rainwater. It's a really, most people laugh when I say that, but codes and policies in the city of Kansas City would tell you that if you have chickens, goats, ducks, even possibly bees, and you give them rainwater, which is great for all the farm animals that I've always raised as a farmer, you're actually breaking the law. I found that out the hard way. And I've been dealing with Kansas City on how can I be a host farm for your urban farming development and still be and using old farming methods and be considered a criminal, if you will. So I have a lot of passion in what could take place here in Kansas City. We have an incredible following of young people that are anxious to start a new possibility called urban farming and contributing to Kansas City's green infrastructure and actually raising families again that are trusted. Right now in the world I'm living in, I hear a lot of distrust about politicians, policemen, you name it. It's unwarranted only because of a lot of the policies and codes that are in place cause people who are just trying to be farmers to be criminals. And I don't consider myself a criminal, but just to share with you, that's some of the challenges that urban farmers are facing right now in the city of Kansas City. And the fear of being a criminal is keeping a lot of people from contributing to Kansas City's goals by 2050. And that's just a few things I'd like to share. I'm open for comments, questions, but I really was invited to this to be part of, if at all possible, your community of making a better future, and doing so passionately and with powerful people. And I would like to throw my hat in the ring as someone who might be an individual with a lot of the heartbeat of America when it comes to people trying to make a difference in this world of uncertainty and even distrust of government leaders and city officials and whatnot. Again, I say that's unwarranted fear, but the codes and policies turn us into people who are doing things undercover, if you will, just for survival's sake. So that's my share, and I appreciate the opportunity.
So, Mark, first of all, thanks for what you're doing. Secondly, you have a hat that's more unique than the rest of us to throw in the ring. And thirdly, I guess it would help me and maybe others to know whether your quarrel with the water department is just that they consider you an outlaw for harvesting rainwater, or whether you are refusing to pay the other water bill because your toilet's hooked up to the sewer.
Actually, I have a lot of data. I can show you water bills from way past, and I've collected all this data really just as a record keeper for my business. But when I took my water bills to City Hall and spoke with my representative, he's the one that started the whole process of introducing me to the Mr. Clarkson at the water company, because he saw my water bills and he said, "Oh my gosh, we got to do something about this." And so I've been in negotiations with KC Water a long time. I don't have anything bad to say about it other than they are not equipped. That's all. They don't have formulas to plug into the billing process for people who are not using water to go down sewers. So, I mean, yes. So I would gladly pay my bill, but I would say 75% of it has to do with runoff water, which I use in place of city water, and the challenge of being charged 3 times for water, like a residential area that uses water that does go down the drain, where maybe 1 or 2 flushes a day was going down the sewer, but every drop of water that came into my property was treated as if it was going down a sewer. And there are several, they know about me and they know about dilemma. There's not been any effort to propose a new where people are only charged for water that does go down, that comes in, they pay for, and then goes down the drain that they pay for. But as it stands right now, everything that comes in goes down the sewer in their mind.
So, Mark, let me offer something, and my colleagues may have much more, but I'm interested to know, Laura and Marty, is there a larger conversation here that it should include Cultivate KC and Nile Aquaponics and Boys Grow? I mean, it seems like this is not Mark's issue. This is a policy.
You have to pay. Right now, I could get a meter on our Tracy Garden, but it would cost $20-some thousand to put a meter in. And so right now I'm buying water from the guy next door. And if I had a meter on my own property, I would be paying 1.50 cents a gallon. And right now I'm paying the neighbor 3 cents a gallon because he has to pay the sewer tax, and I don't. I have it's absorbed by the land. Yeah. So I know that much, and I know that the compost codes do not adequately reflect for gardeners. I was found guilty and not fined for having my compost pile too big. And I said, well, I don't have a house on there. He said, but you're in a residential area, so you're zoned that way, so it's guilty. And he was happy with me, but he still followed the letter of the law. And right now, for my urban wilderness, I have a code violation at this point. So,
Laura, any advice?
Say this is, you're not the first person I've heard this from. This is an ongoing conversation. Thank you for giving me Mark's information. Mark, I need to talk to you more, but this is something that we really need to address on a broader level. We tried putting in the Casey Grow grant process for folks like Marty that wanted to put in a meter so that we could get it paid for. But I don't think that's currently going on right now. But yeah, this whole sewer allowance and the proper way to code it has been an ongoing problem, and it is a bigger conversation, and it needs to be started at a higher level than the water department. So I would love to reach out to you. I'd love to talk to you and hear your stories, but I've heard similar stories from Cultivate and other urban farmers as well throughout my tenure doing education outreach for water. So yeah, I have your info here, and I'm actually, oh, you're Antioch. Okay. Yay. Okay. Yeah, I will reach out to you today, actually, and we can set up a time to talk.
Mark, do you still have those fig trees?
What trees, sir?
Mark, do you still have those fig trees?
Yes, sir. I've got about 500 figs hanging on my trees right now, and you can see my grapes. I have grapes everywhere.
Awesome.
Amazing.
I have it.
And this is all with rainwater, and I don't want to compete with the Missouri Water Department. I actually want to encourage my understanding of the value of water, because when you're in business and your biggest bill is water, you focus on that problem, find out solutions. You focus on solutions. And so all I have been is focus. I'm not angry. I'm not in any way cheated. I'm really privileged to have this opportunity called a solution for my problem that will actually help many people in truly achieving Kansas City's goals. This is where I raised my kids and my 6 grandsons. This is where I want to establish a permanence. And I don't see it possible. And I have like 2,400 people follow. These are all people that dream about being urban farmers, and yet they all have fears that have to do with policy and codes changes. And I don't know if you know this, but in September, Kansas City is going to be on the worldwide map dealing with a convention here in Kansas City. It's called the I can't remember exact name. I was just made aware of it this morning, but it has all to do with policies and codes that are keeping the world really from moving forward. And what's very visible, very easy to recognize, especially if you're in the business of farming and urban farming, these come up every day as obstacles to my people. And they don't know what to do. So I've become somewhat of a voice for that. And that's all I'm here to be, is a voice for what a lot of people need to be successful.
So Mark, we appreciate your voice and your mission. And this won't be ignored, but it's obviously a conversation that has to continue beyond today.
Yes, sir.
Can I make a suggestion that we collect the issues, specific issues of urban farmers? We have an awful lot of connections across the city and include Mark's, and that maybe that's something that goes in our report as in terms of policies that need to be addressed.
yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Great.
And this is also part of the.
Go ahead, Laura.
This is also part of the goal of an equitable climate planning process, is making sure that we are putting policies in place that support positive sustainability initiatives. And if we don't have those, we need to address those. So I sent you an email, Mark.
Thank you.
We've, and at the, Scott and I have met with the water department and facilitated some issues that the big research institutions had with the water department. And it was literally just a matter of getting people to sit down and say, we're having this problem. And the water department was like, oh, wow, we didn't know about this. And here's how we can address it.
This is a bigger one.
Yeah, no, I get that that's a bigger one. But I think we should be putting in our report tangible things that need fixing. And Mark, thank you very much for this is just, we do want to hear these things.
Thank you for letting me share.
See how we can assist people. But there's more, I'm sure there's more. There are at least 3 things here between Marty and his 2 big compost. and
Not feeding chickens rainwater.
What's up with Laura? Do you have some insight on that? That's a health department thing?
Not on that one.
Caroline or Molly, I'm sorry. So I used to work for water also in the water quality laboratory, and it can be dangerous if not done properly. It can come into a lot of contaminants, and so it can be a problem for some people who haven't put in the time to do the research.
Gotcha. We need a water feeding chicken badge.
Well, as a farmer, my animals are my livelihood. And so I actually experiment with water, and it's interesting. Farm animals will actually put some feces in water that has a lot of chlorine in it. And actually, they put microbes, and it's amazing to watch, but they will actually put some feces. Ducks do the same thing. They clean their water with their muddy feet. It's interesting just to get the microbes. Like Marty would understand this. When you're drinking city water, you're drinking something that has in it solutions that kill bacteria, microbes, and fungi. And yet we need all of those elements to even survive. So it's selective, I understand, and research does need to be done. But as a farmer, just simple observation shows me what the animals do with so-called clean water, and how in a day or 2 or 3, they will turn their nose up to that water, both if it's chlorinated right out of the tap or if it's out of the rain. So they literally have a sense or a taste or a way to discern what is in that water that we do not have as humans. It's where they live. It's what they do. Livelihood. So I observe those things and deal with their issues and understand more about the world and what's going on in the earth, because I'm literally hanging out, if you don't mind, with animals that have senses that we do not have anymore. We've lost these senses and just put some sort of trust in something that comes out of the tap. I'm also on the food desert and food security. I've been dealing with the Defense Department on food security, and they are telling us that there's 3 days worth of food in Kansas City in the inner city. Water is even more valuable than the food. We can survive 30 days without food, but 3 days without water, and we're toast. So these are not fear tactics. These are just observations that I deal with every day, dealing with food security, homeland security, food deserts, the CDC I work with. I do some speaking on autism and the sterility rate in males and females being born into our human existence right now. These are all malnutrition problems that are really caused by some, hopefully can get started being solved with policy issues and codes issues. But I mean, we all.
Oh no, we have lost him.
He's frozen. Mark, your connection is, can you
That's
hear?
what you get for speaking out.
Yep, meeting's over.
Yeah, he's got a Johnson Sioux up there we built.
Well, in any event, I think we need to follow up on his concerns.
Oh, I think so too. I think he's eloquent.
Yeah. Well, so it seems to me that first level is we try to build some part of this into the report we were working on earlier and we'll continue to work on. And secondly, Marty, it seems like he should either be a part of this soil building conversation we were having or a separate initiative with all the other growers like Cultivate KC, et cetera, you and so on in defining this for the water department.
Well, I will invite him to be a part of what we're doing.
Right.
Well, I think it is really helpful to get the specifics of what he's having trouble with, because I think if it's just general, it's hard. Laura?
Yes.
Did you have something to say?
No. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just scratching my nose.
Okay. Well, but I do think the specifics are really important because then you can, if you just say in general, these codes are a problem for us, that doesn't, it doesn't lead to much change.
Well, and he clearly already has a lot of specifics, and he has Vera Williams as
Right.
Salt News, a soil scientist, and very knowledgeable. And so I think, there's some real good resource there.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, are the rest of you ready for dinner?
Yeah.
We are dwindling.
I'm hungry.
Well,
I want some good food.
yeah, I look forward to hearing from you guys about the report, please. And I'll do what I can. I also am going to need, is Andy still on?
Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to need some help with the letter about the fleet purchase policy.
Okay.
So that I have the specifics that I need to put in the letter.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, best wishes to all of you.
Thank you. And to you.
We got
Thanks, Carol. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Okay. Good night.
Night.